Alright, hello and welcome buddy back to another video. I'm your SimCFI, which means I'm your flight instructor for any simulator purposes. If you have questions on P3D, X-Plane, or DCS, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to answer it. In saying that, I'm also a real, well, I was a real flight instructor, but to say that, but now I'm a real CRJ pilot, so I fly the RJ. If you have any questions on the CRJ, leave a comment down on that. Or in flight instructing or becoming a pilot, anything you have questions on aviation, I'll be sure to answer them as best I can, and if I can't, I'll get someone who does. So today, on request of David, I'll pop in a comment there if you don't mind, we're going to be doing a full flight. This flight takes place at CYYZ 782 from Toronto to DCA, Ronald Reagan Airport. And I'll be going step by step in how we do it in real world. I'm not going to give you my company's procedures, my company's checklist or call lists and that kind of thing. I'll probably do stuff out of order to what we do just to mix it up. But it's going to be everything that's required to make the jet work, which is all public knowledge. And even Aerosoft has checklists and stuff on that you can even download off their website, even probably off Google too. So everything's going to be public. I'm just going to give you what we do. But out of order, so not what we do. You'll see. Either way, I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to break up the video in segments in a part 1, part 2, part 3, or if I'm just going to put one massive upload and just destroy my solid state drive. We'll see. But this is inspired a little bit from the Frugal Sim fully loaded videos that I used to watch a long time ago. He actually did one in the CRJ as well, a long time ago. But anyways, if you don't know who that is, maybe I'm too old, but go check out Frugal Sim videos. He doesn't make videos anymore, but it's good stuff back in P3D at FSX days. So with that, we're going to get to the first part, which is the flight planning segment. So everyone should know what SimBrief is by this point, but if you don't, the tool is called SimBrief. It is completely free, and it looks like this. What I've got ahead so far is I put in JZA, which is Jazz 782, Toronto DCA, KDCA, alternates Philly. It's the CRJ 900. And the OFP layout, I don't know how they get all these different OFP layouts, I really don't know, but we're going to click the Jazz one. And that seems to work with the RJ real well. But yeah, I don't know if anyone knows how they get all these different airlines. Like they got quite a British Airways, they got Delta, quite a few. Either way, they're blocking it at 130, probably 55 airtime. We'll check the OFP shortly, but it's pretty easy flight plan. Rig is 5 departure, Phillipsburg is the VOR there, and then the Skills 5 arrival. So we'll generate the flight plan. I'll talk about it. We'll grab up the OFP here. So this is an OFP, operational flight plan, and you can see we're 782. The 8 is silent in Jazz world. The 8 is silent unless it's any other number. If it's a 7, a 5, or whatever, then it's not silent. But the 8s are always silent. So we're Jazz 782. Toronto DC, 25th of January. Sorry, 7th of January, 2025. Can't believe it's 2025. Already happened New Year, by the way. There's the FIN number, which we're not that. Anyways, I don't think we have a 922, 7. But anyways, I got the captain, first officer, flight attendant, purser, dispatcher. Come down here. We're flying at flight level 350, and it's going to be a. There's the route right there, as you said. To Philadelphia, it's 10,000. No takeoff alternate needed. The weather in VFR or the weather in Toronto is fine to come back if we have a problem. Flight plan, list of waypoints there. Scrolling on down. There's our average wind and temp. We'll talk about that shortly. Our alternate information is all here. Zero fuel, cargo, and all this kind of stuff will load into the sim. Got an estimate on route time of an hour, so it's pretty close, my guess, 55. Our out and off time is there. And keep scrolling. You got our MEL list, so minimum equipment list is none, of course, in the sim. Real world, it's very often defined. What's an often one you'll find? Lavatory, aft lav is unserviceable, that kind of stuff. Or you might get a, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Floor lighting, I think it's floor lighting. Sometimes is there. Curtains, that's a big one sometimes, so it depends on your airline, but just kind of the basic stuff that could be there. But MEL is a minimum equipment list, so things that are broken on the airplane per se are missing, but we have a list of stuff that we can fly with and a list of stuff that we cannot fly without. And that's basically a general rundown of that. So we have nothing broken. So everything's fine. No life vests on board, normal. Landing cat should be 3. Let's just say cat 3 there. And then if it's an NG bird, which today we do have the VNAV, the magic box, we call it, FMS 4.2, it should have a LPV capable or some sort of notation there that we have that ability. The Aerostop CRJ does not have LPV though, so I got takeoff data 3 right. Won't be using that because they never used 3 right in Toronto unless it's a strong wind for it. Yeah, like they're not going to use it for the 9 knot wind. I got our V speeds. And anyways, we'll get into this a little bit more. So let's dive into the flight deck. Just a general condition outside looks good. We're going to be simulating this to be a through flight, which means it's not the first flight of the day for the airplane. So you don't have to do the full originating check or flight compartment, whatever you want to call it. There's different names for different airlines. So you don't have to do that full giant checklist. Nothing says you can't, but in the instance of time, and it's already been tested, so you don't have to. We're going to skip the safety check just because I don't think people in the sim world really care, but you're just verifying, nav lights are on, the gears left and down position, the flaps are in either 0 and or if they're in a different detent, they match what the detent is. Outside, circuit breakers, that kind of stuff. So fire axe, fire extinguisher, all that kind of stuff. So I don't think people really care about that. So we're going to skip that part. We're going to go straight into the setup. So this is left as a crew came off the airplane. As you can see, the overhead panel has been left pretty much in a ready to go state for the most part. Batteries on, ground power still in use, nav lights still on, hydraulics got the 3A off, the rest of them are auto. The reason for that is if I go to the hydraulic page, you'll notice these pumps here, this is 1B, this is 3B, this is 2B, and if you ever forget, they're labeled. I don't know if you can see that under there. So all the B pumps are backup pumps. And you can see right here it says 1B, 3B, 2B. They're in auto right now. They're not really pressurizing anything. That's because the flaps are out of 0. So if I go ahead and bring the flap to 1 or anything out of 0, you'll see it pressurize up. And those are backup pumps. So I'll bring the flaps back to 0. They depressurize. They don't depressurize that quickly. They don't pressurize and or depressurize that quickly in real life, but either way, they do work the way they're supposed to. And you can see our inboard and brakes and outboard brakes depressurizing. Those are going slower, but they'd still go a lot slower than what they're doing. It takes quite a while. And then 3A is an on or off. There is no auto for this. So an A pump is a primary pump, so it's either on or it's off. And there's no real reason to run this pump constantly while we're on the ground just to wear it out, so we'll leave it off. You might be wondering, well, where are my 1A and 2A switches? Well, you don't have switches for those. The only switch you have ability for that is shut-off valve. So they're automatic as soon as the engine comes on. However, if they were to overheat or fail or whatever, you have these hydraulic SOV shut-off valves. So if something happens, you can shut that valve down to the hydraulics. The CRJ 200, fun fact, did not have these switches, so if you had a hydraulic problem in one of the engines, you'd have to shut the engine down. Luckily in the 900 or 5, 7, 900, they fixed that problem. Anyways, let's carry on. So yeah, so again, we're just doing through flight. The trim's on, the mock trim's on, yaw dampeners are on. What we usually do when we get on the airplane is we just quickly, if I can get myself here, bring these back to nav just because you don't want to use the previous one just in case. Got a nice new alignment going. And so we let me slow down here. We'll go to index, press pause at it. Next page, GNSS 1, that's our GPS 1 position. We'll copy these coordinates down, previous page, and throw it in here. You do not have to type anything in here if you don't want. However, what some people do is you can type in your airport. I don't think the gate will work, but I'll try it. We're at 254. Okay. Oh, I put 254. Let's try this. There you go. Look out the window to make sure. 252. That was pretty close. What some people do is they get the GPS coordinate, they throw it in here, and then the only reason they type something in here is just so they can verify that the coordinate is close to the selected one there, if you're wondering if the GPS is correct. That's kind of the only reason. Other than that, we'll leave that on the flight plan page. And in real life, we'd be getting the ACARS set up. So the ACARS is what gets us our ATIS, so for the weather, it gives us our, we got to initialize the flight. We would have to do our departure clearance. We can get through the ACARS. We can get our takeoff landing reports, our performance numbers through the ACARS. We'd be doing that part now. So we don't have that ability, unfortunately. But what I can do for you is pop up Navigraph, and I can get the weather. So let's get the weather going first. And we're going to port from SimBrief. Alright, 3, we're not using 3.3 right. We'll talk about that later. There should be a weather tab somewhere. You know I use Navigraph quite a bit, don't you? There it is. So, 330 at 9, 12 miles, light snow, broken 3, -8. So, looking at this, out the window, does it compare? I don't see snow, but I see it over there. That rhymed. The light snow plus -8. So, this means we will need a spray. We will have to go get de-ice because we have precipitation with below 0. And actually it's below 10 degrees above 0. So is our limit. So we will need a spray. I'm going to say for simulation purposes, I'm going to skip the spray. But in this case, in real life, we would have to go to the de-ice bay and get de-iced and anti-ice. So get the type 1 fluid, wings and tail, and then get the type 4 fluid, the green one. So orange first and the green one, type 4, to prevent any more accumulation. Again, I'm going to skip that for this video because I just don't want to taxi all the way or take the time. But you would need a spray in this case. However, what we will be doing is it's below 10 with the snow as well, so we will be taxiing with anti-ice, wings and cowls on. If you got a spray, you would not turn the wings on until just before takeoff, like a lineup, because if you had the wings on while taxiing after you got sprayed, you'd be cooking the fluid onto the wing, and you don't want to do that. You want the fluid to stay fluid and not burned. So that's a little note for you as well. Either way, that's the weather. And we got the altimeters are 3002, so I'll put this guy off to the side, and I'm just going to hit the B button. But if you don't know how to do it, the altimeter's right here, this knob right there, and you can set them to be individual altimeters, or you can set it that one knob does all. And I think that's done here in the tablet options. There you go. So I'll have inches of mercury synchronized. I'll press save on that guy. So if I change this, barrow knob 002 should change standby. Oh, that says 3. That's because it says 3. Okay, well I can't do 2, but Toronto is 570, so that's closer. And they're all synced, so we're good on that. We got the weather. So now we got the weather. We're going to be using runway 23. They always depart as 23. Quite a bit of a long taxi. We're going to go ahead and get our takeoff numbers. So let's go back to our OFP. I'm going to zoom out. The planned runway was 33 right. We're not going to use that. Let's go down here. Wet runway, that's true. We got snow with the calm wind. That is also true. Engine anti-ice on. Should say wings and engine anti-ice on. Do we have that guy? Calm wind, engine anti-ice on. No. So it should say wings and engine anti-ice. If it's precip below 10, wings and cowls on for the takeoff, but that's fine. So wet runway, planned takeoff weight, calm wind, engine anti-ice on. The one below here is wet runway, planned takeoff weight plus 2,000 pounds. If you're heavier by 2,000 pounds and you don't have an ACARS at you or on standby, you're able to reference these takeoff speeds and weights and everything. So we'll use this one. We're going to obviously be right on the numbers because I can dial in what my weight's going to be. So runway 23, got a flex of 42. Now if we have the engine anti-ice on, you can't be given a flex. It'll be full. The airplane won't let you flex temp if you have engine anti-ice or any anti-ice on. Bleeds on. it's most likely a rolling takeoff, so it should say rolling or static. Rolling meaning you're just going to get on the runway, start adding power and go, and static or stopped, you're going to be on the runway, run the engines up, and then release the brakes. So it'd be full, not flex, rolling, bleeds open or bleeds on. And we got a flap 8 setting, a V1 at 140, 40, 142. Very often you see them different actually. You don't see that too much in the RJ. They're usually the same. A V2 at 152, and then they didn't give me a VT speed. The VT speed should be there, so we'll figure that out with the little tablet. So let's go start typing this stuff in. We're gonna go down here, and we're gonna click this little knob here to ref speed. Now in real world, just doing this actually actions it, and I am on the beta team for the new update that is coming out, and we have changed that, so it will work. But either way, we'll go to ref speeds, we'll click that in, and you'll see, I have to go to this side because I don't, yeah, so this should be showing up there as well, but it doesn't. Ref speeds, V1, 140. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick still. Select VR 142. Select V2 of 152, I believe. Let me go back to the number there, 52. Okay, and then we'll bug 62, or 152 plus 10, 162. If you're wondering how I'm doing this right now, it's because I have a custom autopilot panel. Not the wing, I have a custom 3.7 one that my friend gave me, and I've just set all the RJ stuff to it, so I'm able to do that. Little fun fact, if you're taking off any of the runway 6s or the 5s in Toronto and you're at the gate 250s or even the 105 gates where the RJ parks, our heading is basically runway heading, so you just got to center the heading indicator and you're pretty much set for the runway. It's quite nice actually. But in this case today, it's runway 23, so it's a heading of 237. Last thing, we're going up on the Rigus 5. I'll pull the chart up for you shortly, but before we get a clearance, we always set 100 feet shy of the clearance there, and so 49 till we get the clearance, kind of a little reminder for us. And then lastly for this page, the yaw dampener's on. Let's go ahead and click those on. That should have been on prior. Lastly on this, we're going to set an engine out procedure slash a, some people call it level off, some people call it an acceleration altitude, basically an altitude where you're going to start speeding up. And instead of pitching for V2 plus 10, you're going to start pitching and nosing down to get a little faster towards the VT speed, which I do have to dial in here. So let's go to performance, and we're going to get our weights in here. Alrighty, so we'll scroll back up. So we have a plan ramp, 8993. Seems a bit low. I'll take 9,000. I'll be a little generous. And usually real world, we don't get fueled right on the dot. We're usually a couple hundred pounds over. We burn it off with the AP. Got a reserve of 15. Got a zero fuel weight of 66,375. So we'll go here. We'll click change to zero fuel weight. 66. Pretty heavy load actually. 375. 395, that's fine. Someone brought an extra bag, whatever. Enter that guy in, set payload, copy perf to the FMS. Actually, I shouldn't have done that because that's not realistic, but we'll get to that point. I'll show you that in a second. So now that we got our weights all plugged in there, we're going to click wet runway. These are giving me 137, 43, and 54, 202. I trust the sim brief numbers a little bit more. 140 seems a bit more reasonable. We got a VT of 202. A VT is our target speed. It does various things, but you can think of it as almost like a VY for a Cessna 172, our best rate of climb in a sense. So if you're in a mountainous area or you need to get the most amount of altitude, least amount of time, you're going to want to climb a VT. That's a good way to think about it, I think, at least. Someone tell me I'm wrong. I'm sure I am. So I'll scroll the VT to 202, and there we go. So that stack is set. Last, we got to get our MDA in there. So our level off height in Toronto, the default in every airport is about 1,000 feet above for the engine out procedure slash acceleration altitude, acceleration height. So Toronto will do 1570. We'll select the knob over here at MDA. Select the knob there, press it in, and we'll just scroll. I'm holding shift so I can scroll a bit faster, and that's being populated at the top here. 1570. Alright, so I should mention I'll be flying from the right seat today. So the last thing we'll have to do on this screen is get this flight director on the transferred. Now we're on the right. So now we're pulling data from the right hand stuff. All the air data computer from the FO side and the PIDO from the FO side and all that kind of stuff. That's all it really does. So now that that's done, this screen is set up. We'll get the FMS plugged away here. We'll click flight plan there. We're at CYYZ. And I'll bring up the flight plan here. Why not? That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Shrink that up. Put you over a little smaller. Alright, so here's the route, quite simple. Real world, the way we plug this in is, let me go ahead and get to that point actually. So KDCA up here, oh, I missed the A, there you go. KPHL is the alternate. Simple, we're 782. I see a lot of people put their airline here, Endeavor, Jazz, and they put you should know what airline you fly for, so you just put the number there and it appears here. And also in Real it actually appears here as well. Once you have to manually do it, but it would appear there once you've set it. Either way, now we got to this point, the way we'd set this up in real life is we'd actually click, or we type in our first waypoint after the SID, which in this case is Phillipsburg VOR, the PSB. In the current version, we fix it in the new one. If in the current version, it does not work that way. So I have to do it the old way, or the simulator way. But what we would do is we would type PSB in here, press in there, press execute, and then if that's the only waypoint we have, then we can put the SID and the star. But if we had further waypoints, we'd type in all the route and then put the SIDs and stars in. But in this case, I'll do it the sim way. So, departure arrival, we're off runway 23, we're on the rig is 5, and I didn't update it, so rig is 4, oh well. And we'll press execute on that, departure arrival, not a bad sim either way. So skills 4, and via Phillipsburg, execute that. So we don't put an approach in. A lot of videos I see, they put approaches in. The only time we put approaches in, if the flight's like 25, 30, maybe 30, but 25 or less, 15-20 minutes, then we'll put it in there. The reason is most companies, mine included, once you click an approach, you don't just start clicking stuff and execute and let's go. You got to click it, verify, and it would take more time on the ground to do that. Plus, once you get to the airport, or once you get close to the airport you're going to, the wind could have just completely changed, or they could have just completely changed operations. So there's no point to put it in here, brief and talk about, and then change it. There's no point. It would just ruin your flight at that point. It just takes longer. And you'd have it in your head that we're doing the ILS-1 or we're doing this approach, and then they change on you, like, oh, change of plan. So it's just easier in the air. You just figure it out. You do it in the air with the ATIS. So that's all done. And we'll go to the legs page. Runway 23 heading at 237, 1.8 miles, 1,100 feet, then heading at 245 vectored for the vector first waypoint Murno. And we have the rest of the route. So do not get rid of this. This is a discontinuity, and that's supposed to be there. And the reason is this is what's known as an open SID. So if I go ahead and bring up the rig as 5, you'll notice that off your runway they have these arrows. And these arrows it signifies it's an open SID, which I like to think of it as open to interpretation by ATC. So our runway here is takeoff, 1,100 feet, right turn 245, and then it's open to interpretation, right? So it should be vectors to Murno, but we'll see what we get. So do not clear that discontinuity and put Murno up here, because you're just going to get to this point and turn to Murno. You can't do that. If they want you runway, or they want you 245 heading until they tell you, they want you 245 heading until they tell you. So that's that. That's fine. We just don't want any discontinuities in the middle of the route. That's fine. And it stops at eyes, which is where it stops in the arrival portion. We'll put the approach in later on. That part's done. Perf. So I've already got ahead and I've synced it there, but let's go ahead and simulate we didn't. So we're 9,060, 9,062 is okay. Our cruise altitude, bring up the flight plan here, flight level 350, so I type it as we see it. 350. with an alternate cruise. I believe it was 10,000. I'll just verify that. It says 10 here. I like to check both. Scroll down. Too many pages. 15. I was looking at the wrong number. 150. Okay, and a zero fuel weight of 66,375. Don't ask me why I remember that. Okay, and once we got the zero fuel weight plus the fuel, it spits out a gross takeoff weight, or a gross weight, sorry. So that's good. Usually what we do is we minus 400 pounds for taxi, and that's roughly our takeoff weight. So pretty much 75 on the mark right there. Our max landing weight in the RJ9 is 75,100. So if in case we have an engine failure after takeoff, we should be able to come back without risking gear and anything like that. So that's a lot good. Press execute. Next page. The reason I like the Jazz OFP from SimBrief is because it gives us this wind in the format we need. So this is the average wind. If I go over here, we got climb, cruise, descent, and we got plus. This is P for tailwind, plus M for minus headwind. So plus 30 knots, plus 27, minus 6 in the descent. So we type it as we see it. Plus 31. Wait a minute. No, that goes here. Plus 27. And minus 6. I don't know why it says T there. Plus 31. There we go. Minus 6. Okay, that's all plugged in. And the next one is our ISA deviation, which is on this side of the FMS. So this is average temperature now when you take the cruise number, which is just 1 degree. So we'll just throw that in there. Execute that. Next page, reserves. Scroll down here. Reserve 1575 in there. Estimated time of departure. We take this number 0445. Taxi fuel's 400. Plug in there. Some taxi times is a 500. Depends where you are. LaGuardia, something. If there's a big delay or something like that, you might need a bit more. But 400 like usually does the trick. Even like Atlanta's like 400. Perf page, we have our advisory. I just click perf. We have our advisory VNAV enabled, which is fine. Usually on these type of airplanes, on the older systems, are actually disabled by default, but this one's enabled. Flex temperature, we're leaving blank because we're using engine anti-ice. Even if you type something in there and it says flex currently, as soon as you put any of the engine anti-ice or wing anti-ice on, it kicks flex off, so it doesn't really matter. VNAV setup. VNAV climb. Our usual profile, 280.77. I'm going to change actually because I have to type this in all the time. So I'm going to change the default so I never have to type it in again. So press index, click defaults. Next page, here it is. So 280/.77. So the next time I load up, I don't have to do this. Cruise changes all the time. Descend is 0.77/290. You're good. Descent angle is a default to 4 degrees. We want that's not for ILS, by the way. That's just for descending into an airport. We use like 4 degrees. Gives us about 3,000 feet per minute, which allows an idle thrust descent, which is very efficient and just easier. So you don't have to work the throttles. That's fine. Yeah, sure. Whatever. That's all good. So now, next time, I'll still have to type it in this time, but next time I won't have to type it in. Transit 18,000. VNAV cruise, so we got 35,000 feet in there, and we're gonna go type in our cruise target speed. So go up in the flight plan here, and we're gonna find the waypoint just under top of climb. So there's the TOC, just under it. We got a 261.77 is what they want us at. So 261/.77. That goes in the target speed there. That's what the flight plan. That's what they flight planned us at. Next page, 0.77/290. Alright, with a VPA path angle of 4. And again, if I reload the airplane, it should be set like that by default now. That's all done. Radio page, auto. Because we're off runway 23, SimBrief won't give you the engine stuff, but the engine out procedure for us, upon reaching 6.2 DME off Toronto VOR, it's left turn 200. So we'll put the Toronto VOR in there manually, and what we're also going to do is we're going to type in YYZ for the Toronto VOR 6.2, and we have a 6.2 DME ring now. This is a reference point. You can have to legally use the VOR DME distance. The engine out procedure references DME. It does not reference a fixed point. So, but it's just a nice reference for us to use. So I put it there. Okay, last step, MFD. After the radio there, MFD menu. And we got, I'm on the flying on the right, so speed and altitude on the right plus range alt select is good. We want VNAV because we're pilot flying. And then left we want on for pilot monitoring. They get speed and altitude as well, and range alt select, so that's all good. You can change what side I'm editing with this button here. With that, flight plan's good, copy active. The other person would check that the other guy or pilot who did not enter in the FMS data would check that it's been entered incorrectly, and if they're satisfied, they go ahead and press copy active as well. So we make a secondary flight plan, and we both return to legs, and we're good on that. Okay, so frequency wise, we'd have company set up in here. We'd also usually have, I would get the PDC by this point, the the clearance, pre-departure clearance from ATC. So in Toronto you have to actually call it in with an identifier. So I would set it up basically like this, put the speaker on so I can hear him, and I would just use the mic down there, and I'd call in the ATC clearance. And once that's done, obviously your squawk code will have been filled out as well. Once that's done, we'll say we've gotten the clearance, flight plan, route, squawk in 2000, and since we've got clearance, we can go up to 5000 now. And we'll set this up for cruise. So I hate actually twisting the knobs here, so I'm just going to type it in. That can be set up there. Alright, so that's ready to go. Com 1 wise, in Toronto, VATSIM never has these stations manned, but you'd have 12287, which apparently I can't even do. Let's see, I should be able to do it. They want 75. Yeah, they want 75. Alright. And then or standby would be 12207. Again, don't ask why I remember frequencies, but you just use them every day, so 075. Okay. There you go. So that part's done. So we have what we've plugged in here is coordinator. At Pearson they have a coordinator. You gotta call them first to see if your pushback times are valid. If they're valid, they send you this guy, apron, and they actually give you the pushback clearance. That's how that would go. So we'll leave that set up for later. And with that done, it'd be time for the before start stuff. So I'll see you guys. Let's see, we've been running for quite a while. Let's keep running. Let's see what happens. Let's see if my PC overheats here. We'll just keep going. So some things I can check off the list here is the trim setting. We don't get our trim setting until the final numbers are in. All the bags are loaded, all the people are on board, all that stuff. Once the weight's been confirmed, we get a trim number. We're at that point already because we control the weight. So we'll look down here. Takeoff trim is 6.9. So we'll go ahead and plug in 6.9. There we go. 6.9 is in there. Okay, so we'll do the before start flow. Again, I'm not going to give my company's one. I'm just going to do it out of order. And it is what you need to click, just not in the order we do it. So let's go ahead and get the hydraulics to auto. Go ahead and get the seatbelts on. And we're going to get the APU started. So what we do is you click the left button first, power fuel, go right to ICAS number 2. APU and bite, that's the self-test, has been completed. APU shutoff valve is open. And then we got the APU door is open, and we have the RPM and EGT gauges popped up. That's a successful APU power shutoff. Clicking that button has been successful. So I'll go ahead and press the start button. The APU can technically be an unmonitored start. The APU on the ground in the CRJ has a automatic shutdown if there's a fire detected, and an automatic fire discharge. It'll actually discharge the fire bottle in the APU automatically for you. But we like to watch it just in case, right? I don't trust automation too much. So once it gets to 100%, we're going to check our electric pages. So there it is. LELEC, you can hear the bleeds pop on from the air rushing in. We got the gen in green. The APU is also cyan blue, which means it's good power. and it's being powered into bus 1, bus 2. Bus 1's powering essential bus as well, bus 2 powering the service bus. External AC has been cut off completely from the power system, and all the voltage and frequencies are looking good. At this point, this is a spring in this version. In the new one it won't be, but we would click this switch back out and then tell the ground guys to get rid of the ground power. So let's go ahead and do that. Tell them to close their doors as well. Get rid of the chucks. They'll do everything all at one shot. I love it. Best ground service in the world. And you see the external power is not there anymore. And we'll click electric one more time. Check our DC page. TRU 1, 2, just transformer rectifier unit 1, 2, and essentials are online. Everything's being powered. No yellows, and we have no emergency bus that's popped up either. So everything is looking great. Back to stat page there. Actually, we'll go back to the ECS page. This is roughly the point where we start to get temperature complaints. As you can see, we're pumping in minus 70 degree air into the cabin currently. Somehow it's heating up because I went for that, but we're going to let that do what it wants in the sim, and we'll call it there. The temperature system in the old RJs are one of the mysteries. Everyone has their own way to control them. What I know about it is the cockpit knob, this one here, controls the aft part of the airplane, close to the tail, and the cabin part of the knob controls the first class cabin area, business class kind of cabin area is the way I like to think about it. So you'll see a lot of times they're kind of like this or all over the place, and everyone has their own method. So what I do is I just set it to, I don't know which, everyone has their own quirks, each airplane are different, so I'll just set them to the selected temperature I want. I'll see how it's reacting, and then from there I'll kind of diagnose and just keep changing them. Usually the captain will handle that stuff anyways, but that's what I like to do. I like to experiment stuff. So yeah, we're still pumping in minus 50 air, but somehow it's stable at 24 degrees Celsius, so that's looking great. Sure, it shouldn't be yellow, but that's the sim. So alright, so that's all good to go. Where was I? That's all good to go. Let's get our cabin pressure set for landing elevation. So if you didn't watch the new video, I'll show you a little trick here. We're going to the DCA, we'll press index, database, KDCA, elevation of 14 feet, pretty much leave it at 0. I'll just click it, I'll spin it once, boom, landing out 20, cool. That's been set. And now what we'd have happen is the tug would connect. So let's get that guy connecting. No.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push is completed and brakes are set.
For the clock, let's set this up properly. So we're going to go ahead and press the reset and then select ET.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Okay, thank you. We're going to click mode until it's set to GPS. Oh, GPS time. Okay, and this, what this does is you don't have to start a timer when you're taking off in this airplane. As soon as your wheel's up, the timer starts for you and it starts counting up. So you don't have to set a chrono if you've been doing it. You've been working too hard. Don't got to do it.
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Alright, so at this point we would have had our before start checklist as well, so let's go ahead and do that, and we'll talk about a brief as well. We have multiple briefs at our company, but I'll just give you a general IFR brief. We'll get into what we do into terms of the instrument brief and everything like that. So let's go ahead. Oh my god, this guy talks a lot. Where's it gonna go? Oh yeah, go to the checklist page here. Before start check. Alright, so APU. So devices, airplane mode, left and right, APU is on, electrics checked, takeoff data set, doors, bring up the doors page, closed. We want a straight back, push back. I kind of want to just tell them to not do anything, so don't do anything. Doors closed, beacon, alright, we'll get to that point in a second. So we'll say holding at the beacon. Let's go ahead and do our brief here. Bring up the Rigas 5 departure once again. And I'm kind of, I don't know if you noticed in this tutorial so far, I'm kind of going at a faster pace. I'm not going super, this is what we do, da 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 da. Again, I can't even give it away, but it's hopefully if you fly this plane, you fly other planes, you're able to keep up. And if you're not, I can slow down, or we can join a Discord call and I can help you out as well. But hopefully it's good enough. I kind of just realized right now I'm kind of just going at a pace. I probably should have been slower, but let's go ahead and do our brief here. So Rigor's 5 departures and RDIV departure, and we'll go down here. We have some, I'll talk about these climb gradients in a second. Runway 23, unless otherwise signed by ATC, climb runway heading 1100 feet, then right turn 245, expect vectors, Murno, then proceed via depicted route, unless otherwise it's up to 5,000. Engine, let's go back to our noise. Turns in Toronto, there's no turns below 30,600 feet, so 3,600 is no turns. And then the engine out procedure, as we already briefed, it's upon reaching 1570 and 6.2 DME, left turn 200. And that's it, and then we'll just advise that we're flying runway heading, or heading at 200 ATC if we need to. So these climb gradients here, so say it requires a minimum climb gradient, runways 23 is not here, which means we need the default climb gradient, an IFR climb gradient, which is 200 feet per nautical mile. Let's say we're taking off runway 5, however, and we need 360 feet per nautical mile up until 2,700 feet is reached. We go down here to 360, which required. We go to a ground speed that we roughly will be taking off at. We'll say, you know, we're in between, let's say 200 just to call it nice. We need at least 1,200 feet per minute. Now, 2 engines, 100% can do it. Single engine, depending on the performance, you know, high density altitude kind of stuff, might not actually get that. Toronto, you should be able to get 1,200 a minute in with single engine in the 900. 200, not so much. That's it. So, consider that brief. The departure is going to be with 28.8. Off 2-3. We would also do a takeoff brief in terms of the performance calculations and numbers, as we talked about earlier, the full rolling bleeds open, any anti-ice required, that kind of stuff. We would talk about all those as well. So we'll say we've discussed all that. Let's bring the yokes up here. All right, let's continue. So the doors are closed. We'll go ahead and grab the fuel pumps on, grab the beacon light on. We'll grab the transponder number 2. Let's go ahead and squawk 2000. So this is something that's not correct as well, and I've mentioned this to the team here, is this squawk code is the same code on ATC 1, ATC 2. We just decide which one we want to squawk it on, either the 1 or 2 side. But there's no, you can't have 2 separate codes on one side. So either way, let's continue this guy here. So continue, we'll go beacon on, fuel pumps and quantity. So on is the answer to that. Fuel pumps and quantity. The first part of that's fuel pumps. So on. Quantity is 9,020. Let's go to our flight plan here. Plan ramp is 8993. So on, 8,993 is required. Basically 9,000 pounds. That's how that kind of check would go. Hydraulic pumps, auto on. And you can see they're auto, on, auto. That's why its response there is auto on. And then we'll go to parking brake. Let's go ahead and continue pushback. Nope.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by
Straight
for engine
pushback.
start until push is completed and brakes are set.
Alright, parking brake is off. Force check is
Commencing
complete.
push. Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push is completed and brakes are set.
Alright, well, we can't start our engines. I'll talk about the engine start. The way this goes, I'll talk about the button sequence. Let's go back to leg phase there. I'll talk about the button sequence, and I'll talk about the... oh, sorry, I just caught that. I was on the captain side when I set my MDA. Let's go ahead and do that on the FO side. This happens when I'm on 2 sides of the flight deck there. 1570, that looks correct. I'm just looking for anything I missed there. So, engine start-wise, the sequence of events is we've got the go-ahead to go and start. Real world, you'd click and hold the starter until, because you're opening a valve when you're pressing this. You can't just press it and release it. You're opening a valve. So you got to press and hold. You get the right engine start message. Once you get the message, you start the clock, and then you're watching for the you're watching for the N2 to rise. Once the N2 is at 20%, you're going to add in fuel as long as the ITT is below 120 degrees, and then you're monitoring this entire column here. So once you add in the fuel, you're going to want that N1 to be rising quite, pretty soon after. In the sim, the N1 rises as soon as you start the engine, as soon as you press the starter. In real life, in the 900, the N1 will not increase until roughly 30, 33, roughly N2. So it takes a while, actually,
Please set
for it
parking brake.
to come up. But that's pretty much the sequence there. Alright, verify good engine start. Let's go ahead and start them up. So he didn't say I'm good, but I guess I'm good to go. So I would click and hold like this. It won't work, so I'll let go. Engine start right's been observed. Let's go ahead and start the timer. Okay, I'll tell you why we need a timer shortly after. And we got 12. Everything's looking good. See how the end one's already rising? It would not be rising right now. It'd be pretty much 0.3. There's 20. Go ahead and add the fuel. And then with that light off, you heard in the sim, the bleeds come right back on. That wouldn't happen. The bleeds would stay off because they're still powering the start. And the ITT with the fuel introduced should be cranking right now. The ITT should be up in the 300s by this point, if not hotter, because it's a jet engine, right? It's getting quite hot back there. And only now at the 40 and 2, it's coming around 200. Okay, watching, observing start. We should have a starter cut at 50 in the 900. In the sim, they have it at 55, so they're using the 200 number, but it should be at 50. There's 55 starter cutout, and then okay, GSX. I'm gonna tell this guy to go away because I hate hearing the beeps here.
Cockpit to ground.
Go away.
We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
See this ITT red bug would jump, and then the IT would hit a peak, the needle, sorry. And it would start coming down. At the point where it starts, the IT to start to reduce, is when we turn our clock off. So this clock is used. We have 90 seconds between start cycles. So if we had a hot start or anything, we had to shut the engine down. We can keep the starter on for up to 90 seconds. And the reason we keep the starter on, but we cut the fuel off, is because we want the ITT temperature. We want to keep the engine spinning so that ITT gets colder and colder and colder, with just no fuel in it. So with that, let's go ahead and start the left. So starting left. Alright, we'll start the timer up. Only press that timer when you got the left engine start, not because that's white.
Bypass pin removed.
Gotta make sure it says it there.
Left is clear, right is clear.
So, okay, you're clear to go to hand signals. Just make sure the service panel door is closed. Have a good one. There's 20. Add the fuel. And if you're wondering how I'm doing that, I have it mapped to I'm using a Thrustmaster Warthog, which has a detent, a cutoff detent, so I just mapped it to that, and I'm able to just bring the throttle up. But if you're not able to do that, all you'd have to do is, from shut off, just click it. Just click this white part. And rear world, you have to use the detent there, but in the sim, you can just click them forward. Oh, I missed the emergency lights, didn't I? That's why we have an ICAS page. Yeah, that should have been done through the through flight. That's my mistake. That's why we have checklists. Okay, that would be starter cutout, but we're waiting for 55 in the sim at least. Starter cutout. ITT's peaked. Reset the clock right back to ET. Alright, so the engines are on. Let's go ahead and check the electric page to verify that anytime electrical stuff changes, you check the electric page. Ground power to APU, check the electric page. APU to engines, check the electric page. Engine to APU, check the electric page. Anytime the electricals change sources, you're going to be checking this page. So what's going to happen is you got a good gen, we got a good IDG on both engines here, which are providing power to the respective buses. The APU has been shut off the bus completely. Or off the buses, I guess, off the system. And once again, our electrical DC page, everything's being powered up nicely, no yellows and no emergency bus located. So we'll go back to the stat page. No need for the APU anymore, so we'll go ahead and click the APU off, as you can see, and it just shuts off on its own. Those should appear, those should stay there for a bit, I'm pretty sure. The door doesn't close immediately either, but that's just memory. Alright, then we'll go ahead again. I'm going to give you the after start flow out of order because I just won't give it to you in order. So go ahead and get our probes on, get our aft cargo on, and then because we're taxiing, it's snowing. Let's simulate that we are going for a spray, and we'll just say we did it as I taxi past it. So we'll get the cowls online. We won't get the wings online because there's no sense in getting those up to 107 degrees really hot and then put some fluid on there and then it cooks. So we'll get the cowls on, that's it. Or was I here? It's kind of weird doing flows out of order actually, because it's a flow for a reason. So either way, we have the overhead panel set as we like it, as you can see. So everything's looking good there. So probes are on, aft cargo, got the cowls on because it's below 10, with the precip outside and the wings off because we're going for the spray. Alright, that'd be time for the after start checklist. There's 2 items I haven't done, but I want to see how this checklist is laid out, because for us they're... Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the 2 items now because it's not there. So I saw one of them, but we'll check the flight, the rudder here. The captain would check his rudder. Left. Gotta lock my wheels down. Right. And with that, nose of steering can get turned on. Alright, let me go ahead and get my yoke plugged in. It hasn't been plugged this whole time because I hate moving around the mouse with this giant thing on the table. But I hope you're enjoying so far. Let's get this guy on ET as well, and GPS. If you're liking it, please leave a comment, please leave a like. Everything helps. Alright, so we got the yoke all plugged in here. I got the start checklist now. So generator is auto. You should be looking at this stuff while you're doing it, but auto, that's where we checked the electric page earlier, eh? And this is where the switches are here. Auto, auto. Electrics checked. Bleeded valves, auto. That's this knob right here. I haven't touched that. I don't know why that's I don't know why that's in this part. Packs on. They're auto. Yeah, they've been on. APU off. Anti-ice. Cowls on. Wings off. Nose of steering armed. Rudder is also checked. Probes are also on, and aft cargo is also on. Should be in there, but either way, that's good. So taxi checklist. What they got in here? Okay, thrust versus arm should not be done in the taxi. This should be done way up in here, way up in there. But either way, we'll look at that when we get to that point. Oh, well, I guess we're going to taxi now. So what would have happened ATC-wise, would have contacted coordinator, say coordinator Jazz 782 ready to push stand 252 information, whatever ATIS you got. They'd say, Jazz 782, your times are valid. Contact or monitor 2207 for the push. You'd switch over. And then you'd be waiting, just hope they come back to you, and they'll say Jazz 782 apron, push straight back to the circle, call taxi. And so at this point we'd have 2207 called up, ready for the taxi point, and we'd have 121.9 loaded up for our ground frequency, ready to go later. So we'll do the taxi checklist now. Slats and flaps I'll do later because we're going to get de-iced. Flight controls are checked. Alright, we'll do this. This is kind of out of order of how my company does this, but so we're gonna skip that one for now. We'll just go right to before takeoff, and I'll get to that later on. Alrighty, let's go ahead. Park and brake off. Taxi light on. A little bit of power. Doesn't need much. As soon as you start rolling, I guess I should get a taxi clearance, eh? So ramp apron would usually give us alpha mic. And then we'd contact ground. So they'd probably say something like Jazz 782, lane 10, alpha mic, or short of alpha mic, something like that. So lane 10 is this guy right here. That's lane 10. Lane 9's over there. And I just realized I haven't locked my rudder or my office chair. Go ahead and lock that down so I can use my feet without sliding all over the place. Best thing I've ever bought in my life are these lockable office chair wheels. I just lock them, and now I got a nice setup. Alright, so I'm sure you don't want to see me taxi about 4,000 kilometers to Thruway 23 from here. So let me go ahead and I'll skip ahead to our before takeoff setup. Alright, so by this point, we've been taxiing here. It would have been ground 1219, and they'd say it's short Alpha Kilo, which Alpha Kilo is coming up. Then they'd bring us over to a 2165. Oh my gosh, it takes so long. Okay, it takes way too long to get there. 12165. Nope, there we go. Perfect. And they'd give us taxi clearance past Alpha Kilo. Usually Alpha Hotel short of 23 is what the clearance would be. So we're simulating, we've de-iced, and we're taxiing over to the runway at this point. I'm gonna skip. We have steps in our de-ice procedures to do an engine shed and a run up to make sure there's no ice in there and leave the packs off for a certain amount of time. I'm gonna skip that part. We're gonna keep it simulator focused because it doesn't matter in the sim. So we'll just skip that part for now. So yeah, we'd be in 121.65, and we're always in the aviation is looking at what's coming up next. So next is tower with 18.7. Got that preloaded, and then departures 28.8. So at this point, Captain would usually start to call for before takeoff stuff. So we'll go ahead and do the flow. Grab the flaps to 8. Again, I'm going to do it out of order to what my company does. Just, you know, we got legs page on each, 1570 there, 1570 there, 5000, 5000. Got an N1 of 85.8. We would reference our takeoff card, our ACAR's takeoff report, and it would give us an N1 setting. And we have certain limits to be within for that setting. I'm going to grab sorry, you couldn't see it in the video there. We're going to grab the crossflow auto to override the manual crossflow, and we get the message right there as well. And we'll check the flight controls. Full right, down, full up. Rudder's already been checked at the gate. Back to stat page. How are we doing after or before takeoff checklist? Let's see what this has in here. Lights and strobes, nope. So that's usually a lineup checklist area. We're not really at that point, so we'll skip that one for now. Fuel crossflow is man off, and that's what it says there. So manual crossflow, and off is just referring to gravity crossflow being off. Flight attendants advised, so certain companies you'd call the flight attendants, certain companies the flight attendants call you. We'll say they're seated and advised. Transponder is on. It's already been on. It's been on two since the taxi. Radar and terrain, we don't need that. And CAS is checked. What they're getting at is the stat messages and the CAS message. So we have no cautions or warnings. We have in our stats and advisory messages, takeoff config okay, cowl anti-ice on, reverse and left and right's armed, man crossflow, seatbelts, and no smoking. So that's been reviewed. We'll box those once we get to the runway, and then we'll do the lineup check. So this is Alpha Run now. We'll take the right turn at Hotel, and then we'll hold short 2-3 at runway Hotel. So no one really uses full length at Toronto at 2-3 except for the heavies. Like I saw an A350 do it once, but even triples take it from Hotel. I think it's like maybe 300 to 600 feet you're leaving behind you out of an 11,000 foot runway. So I don't know why it's the norm to just use Hotel. But they'll just say hold short 2-3, and they mean 2-3 at Hotel. They don't tell you that, but they mean 2-3 at Hotel when ATC tells you that. Again, hopefully you're liking this so far. Please like, comment down below, and maybe send me a new SSD because I think it's full now, but we'll see how this goes. Still not even off the ground. Alright, so we'd be with tower at this point. We'll go ahead and switch over. And we would also have 128.8 on the pre-select ready to go. And they'd say tower, you know, Jazz 782, line up and wait runway 2-3, something like that. Maybe a takeoff clearance right away, but we do line up clear or flow. So we'll get the strobes on. We would go ahead and verify that the flight attendants are seated. Once again, we give them a couple chimes. Some airlines don't, some airlines do. And then we're lining up, so wing anti-ice on. Remember, we got, in our simulated world, we got de-iced, and now that we're on the runway, the fluid's still on the wing, but we're turning the anti-ice on just as we get to the runway. It did stop snowing, but our numbers have been run for the wing and anti-ice on. The stat messages have been reviewed. We can box them by pressing stat, and now they just turn into messages. So if anything new pops up, they pop up there. And I'll go ahead and press the toga button right here in the throttle. Toga, press that button right there, and that sets you in takeoff mode. We got TOTO with the flight directors here. You can see we got a lateral and a vertical path to follow. We got a takeoff configuration, okay. Wings and cowls on now. And the runway 23 was verified behind us there. Then we'd just be waiting until Toronto says, you know, Jazz 782, wind is 330 at 9, clear takeoff 23, departure in the air, something like that. And so I'd go ahead, and it looks pretty IFR-y outside in the clouds there. So we'll go ahead and throw all three on. And would say lights on with the lineup check is completed there. So if I was pilot flying in the right seat, captain would transfer control, my control. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the throttle, this little line here, in between this screw and this climb setting. And that should give me roughly 70, 75 and 1. And once that's been observed and stable, I'll then proceed to go click into the toga position there. The thrust should be set under 60 knots. And again, I'm not going to say any callouts, but just the general ones you'll use. You've heard 80 knots, that kind of stuff. V1 rotate, you know, I'll say those ones. So I'll go ahead and set this guy up here. And this is a rolling takeoff, so brakes are off. These engines in the sim take way too long to stabilize. That's been observed as good. And we'll put the throttle in the toga position. The thrust is set. And even before 60 knots, look at that. It's almost like we know what we're doing here. So I would say 80 knots, pilot flying says checked. Alright, just need some rudder support. Now when we get to V1 rotate, I'm going to put about 2 inches of back pressure. There's V1 rotate and hold. 2 inches of back pressure and hold. A little bit, maybe a little bit more here. And let the airplane just come off the ground. And then you're going to pitch right up to the flight director. Pitch right up to the flight director. There we go. Gear up. Speed mode, we're going to get our climb 168 set there. And we'll go heading mode. It should be nav, but it doesn't work. Actually, it should work in the sim now. Let's try it. FMS2's armed and captured there. We're above 600 feet. Let's go ahead and click autopilot on. We're above our 1570, so we're going to accelerate to 200 and now do VT plus 10 or roughly. So we'll do climb 210. V2 plus 12, flap 1. And 1's indicated there. VT minus 20 so knots there. We'll go flap 0. Okay, the flaps are at 0. We're just passing VT now. Climb thrust. That's been set. And I'd grab the after takeoff. So we'll go ahead and grab the man cross flow off. We'll go back to auto, I should say. Landing lights all off. Reverses can get disarmed. And we'd call up the departure. Go up to departure 28.8. So I'd say departure Jazz 3, correction 782, 3,500 climbing 5,000. They'd go ahead and say Jazz 782. Also, sorry, I'm going to cut my little speech here. Above 3,600, so we can accelerate to 250 as well. They'd clear us usually to 7,000 feet. And direct Murno on course or whatever they wanted to give us. So 7's in there and confirmed. We'll put Murno in there as well. Confirmed and execute that. And our FMS2's already captured, so we're nabbing. Nothing else to do there. And we're at climb 250. The setting of the climb power is staying the same. We got some cloud coming up and it's at minus 13. So we'll keep the engine anti-ice and cowls on as suspected. Always match the heading indicator back up with where we're going. And I'm just going to double click Murno there just to make it stop from wiggle waggling onto the course. And away we go. So they'd come back and say Jazz is 782, climb maintain 15,000. And then Toronto Center on 33.3 I think it is in Toronto Center. This is where my memory starts to go away now. So you'd read it back and say 33.3, Jazz 782 up to 15,000, whatever. Cool. Now you're with center. Toronto Center, Jet 782, 7,000, climbing 5,000. And they'd come back and say Roger or radar contact or some sort of info that they see you. At this point, we can go ahead and hide the MDA. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. And we're on our way to DCA. Okay, the next thing coming up is the 10,000. So the pilot flying has something to do, the pilot monitoring has something to do, the flying is going to accelerate the airplane. That's basically it. The monitoring is going to kick off the lights, kick off the belts if needed, if it's looking nice outside. Speaking about that, we're out of the clouds. We have no ice light reported there, so cows and wing off. Passing 10, I'm going to scroll my speed knob, which is this guy here, up to 280, our climb speed there. The airplane's, with the autopilot's going to nose the airplane down to accelerate. Alright, while that's doing that, we can go and kick off the landing light. Verify we're pressurizing there. And it looks like after this turn, we'll be able to release the... looks pretty smooth. Yeah, we'll go belts auto on that guy, and we'll set our frequency up for emergency frequency, so you can tune in and listen to the emergency frequency 121.5, and we just like to monitor it just to make sure if anything does happen we can report it to somebody if they need to be listening. That's it. It's passing 10,000. Pretty simple stuff. Looking well. Lights, pressure belts, pretty common in the airline industry. I think the 37's the same. I mean, every airplane you're going to check the pressure through 10,000, every airplane you turn lights up through 10,000, and every airplane you're going to speed up through 10,000. So, pretty standard stuff. Alright guys, so as you remember, we've been leveled off at 15,000 by ATC. We've just been given 35,000 now by myself. Some things we do sometimes is if we're waiting down here for a clearance and we haven't been given higher yet, we'll accelerate to about 300, 320 just to keep the ball rolling, because down here at 280 knots is not the same as up higher at a nice thinner air at 280 knots, so we'll kind of keep on schedule better this way. But now that we've been giving a higher climb, what some people do is they'd go ahead and click speed mode 280 and throw the thrust up, and what happens if you do that is the airplane's just going to nose up quite uncomfortably. It's not unsafe, it just feels terrible. So in this case what I'm going to do is we've been given 35, I'm going to select vertical speed. We'll do 2,000, we'll do 2,500 a minute. Now again, in real life the airplane doesn't pitch that aggressively. It does 3 degrees a second maximum on the pitch. Alright, we're slipping from 320. I'll put in our climb power there. And we're accelerating again, so we want to be decelerating. Let's go ahead and get this guy decelerating here. Bit less draggy in the sim. In real world, 4,000 a minute, it wouldn't be working. But we're going to bug 280. And as soon as we get back down to 280, I'm going to go ahead and click speed mode. So that's kind of a nice way that we comfortably get back down to 280, other than just hit speed mode, dialing it back down to 280 and rifling the power in. There's transition 292 there. Don't know why you're still flashing at me, but I'll hit B. There we go. And you can see the speeds, or the speeds just gradually coming off. I'll give it a vertical speed of 4,000 a minute, just to kind of bring the nose down a bit, and speed mode 280, or climb 280 I should say. Now the airplane's going to manage that as it was earlier. So if you ever get leveled off before you've reached your cruise altitude, you can hold 280 if you want, or you can speed up a little bit, and then once you get higher, go vertical speed and such. I'm going to give myself a nice cut, direct Phillipsburg, which happens usually, so we'll confirm and execute that. We're going off to the left towards Phillipsburg now. Phillipsburg VOR. Alright, so next neat little thing I'll show you on the route here is passing 31,600 feet, which is coming up shortly. We're going to change from climb 280 to climb 0.77. That's why this number works really well, because it just so happens around this altitude at most days, depending on the temperature, climb 280 does match 0.77 quite well, and it'll switch for you by itself. So here you go, 31.6. You'll also get half bank up here as well, so we're limited on 15 degree of roll. 31.6, climb 77, half bank. That's it. Now the airplane's going to start pitching for 7.7. So if you're climbing, let's say at 320 knots, you're going to reach 0.77 a lot lower, which means you're not going to have that automatic switch. You're going to have to manually click this knob inwards, IS Mach, to switch you from 320, climb 320 to climb 7.7, and you have to be watching for these numbers. If you don't, and you hold that climb 320 going up this high to 331.6, you're most likely going to be in the overspeed bucket pretty quickly, because climb 320, as you can see, 320 is not even here. It's beyond the red. So just thought I'd show you that. We're getting closer to our airport here. We're going to start approach prepping a little early, just so I have time to talk about it. So let's go ahead and grab our Navigraph again. So any airplane you get into, one of the training captains gave me this actually, the little rhyme, or I don't know what to call it, but anyways, anytime you do an approach setup in any airplane, you can pretty much follow these 3 steps. And there's a lot of steps inside of them, however. These 3 layout kind of step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is going to be weather. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get what weather. And the reason we want the weather is because you want to know what runway you're going to use. That's kind of that part. And, you know, what kind of approach and yada yada. There's a lot baked into that, of course. But for right now, let's just check the weather. Open airport. Weather. So 350 at 11, so proper runway 1, 10 mile viz, broken 15, overcast 75, minus 2, 29085. That's fine. Got the trim remarks. Anyways, it's all looking normal. So most likely the Mount Vernon visual runway 1, or maybe even the ILS runway 1. I think actually the Mount Vernon's a bit low. That cloud's a bit low for the Mount Vernon, so it might just be straight up ILS 1. We got a alerter there, 34 for 35,000, this 1,000 feet to go chime. Anytime you hear that warning in the CRJ, that 1,000 feet to go, stop all attention for a bit, get accompanied with what the airplane's doing, which you should have an idea of anyways, and be ready, because alt cap's going to appear shortly. Alt cap will capture the altitude, and in this case we're going to have to reduce the thrust, but in some cases you have to increase the thrust. Both scenarios are bad if you forget to increase and or decrease the thrust. So it's flashing away. This airplane in the sim takes quite a way. Alt's cap comes on way too early. We're doing 1,000 feet a minute. 1,000 feet a minute, 10% of that. We should be starting to level off of roughly 120 feet away from 35. Not like we should get alt's cap like now. Around now we get alt's cap, and then it starts to shallow it out a bit. Either way, we'll check here. VNAV, cruise. They plan us at 7.7. We'll hold 7.7. I'll bring the power back a wee bit. And we're alt's capping at 35 grand. Now that we're up here, we're going to do our top of climb fuel checks. Let's go ahead and check our fuel here, and we'll bring the power back a little bit more. Bring it over here so you can see. So I'm going to go down to the TOC, top of climb, and I'll get to that in a second. And before I do that, I'm going to show you a quick way to get nice and stable with the speed. We're at 35,000.77. I'm going to set my fuel flow to roughly 1,800 pounds per hour per side, just a rough number, somewhere close. And we're going to observe the speed trend here. We're ever so slightly accelerating, so let's go ahead and dial them back just a touch. just maybe there we go. That's looking quite good. We're slowly accelerating, very, very slowly, but that should be good for us right now. All right, and that'll be pretty stabilized. So top of climb, they said we'd do it in 20 minutes. We did it in 18 minutes, so we're a little early on that. That's great. They wanted planned fuel is 61.69, and we're at 67. So we're a good 600 pounds or more up on fuel than planned, so that's great, more fuel. And the minimum en route fuel at this point is 51.94, basically 5,200, which we're a good 15 or so, 1,700 feet, sorry, 1,500 pounds or so over minimum, so we're good on that. RVSM wise, is our everybody does a check. Everyone does a check above 29,000 feet. They're in the reduced visual separation range altitude. So above 29,000 feet, your altimeters have to be within a certain with a certain degree of accuracy, and they're also in 35,000 feet. So the RVSM is checked as well. So top of climb has been checked, and the next one to go is Phillipsburg, which is assuming 5,700. We can go to the Prague page. They're estimating 65, so looking great on fuel. Either way, our speed has crept up a tiny bit. That's fine. Speed a little higher than the bucket is better than speed below the bucket. So we always want to carry speed in and or slightly above. If you're going to have an error, slightly above is the error you want. Either way, with that, we got the weather. We're leveled off now. Let's go ahead. The next one is weather weight. So weather is first. We got the weather. It's going to be running 1 on the ILS most likely. And then the next one is weight. The reason we need the weights is because we need a landing speed. And the way we get a landing speed is through a landing weight. So the way to do this in real life is you'd get the zero fuel weight plus your landing fuel. Now, this is one of the gripes I have, is because we don't have the approach loaded in right now, it doesn't give us any information into DCA. It should know how far DCA is without an approach. It should know how long it would take to get there, and it should know how much fuel we'd be over the airport with. But we don't have that information, so we're going to put in our approach. See, I don't like to do this, but because we're it's going to be a little out of order. Let's go perf. Let's see if we can get our progress. Let's see if we can get a fuel here. There we go. I think that's being a bit generous, but they have us at DC with 5,500 pounds. So 55 plus 66 would give you your landing weight, which honestly isn't that much lighter than us right now. That brings us at, oh, that's my bad. Let's have a calculator here because I can't do math. With 72,000 pounds right there, we'll call it 71,815, or round up to 72. So 72,000 pound landing, and that would give us our speeds, our VREF, our V2 go-around speed, in case you have a go-around. What's our V2 on that go-around? And we have our VT FTO, so our VT speed. If we have to go around, we need a new VT speed, like the same we had for the takeoff. In the sim, you can just click performance. It gives it to you all right here. You can just press set all, and they're set. So V2 growing at 150, quite high actually. That's 2 knots less than we took off with though. VFTO is 238. That's crazy high, but all right. And then VRF at 141. So weather weights have been done. We got our landing weight, which gives us our landing speeds and our other speeds there. And the last thing is plates. So weather weights plates. Let's bring up the ILS runway 1 in DC. And this is the plate. So we just take data that we have on the plate. Notice how my speed, by the way, is behaving quite nicely in our fuel pounds per minute, around 1,700 at this point. So every day is different. I start with 18 and I kind of work myself up or down. But yeah, that's the speed's holding nicely. You got those people that say, I got to keep adjusting the speed, keep adjusting. They're making too big movements. You got to make very small movements, and it takes care of itself. So back to the plates. What can we grab from the plate? Well, we can grab the ILS frequency. We can grab the minimums. It is, let's see, forgot the temperature already. I believe it was minus something here. Let me grab it on Preflight on my phone. Yeah, it's -2, so we'll actually need a temperature correction for this. However, I don't think, I'm pretty sure Flight Simulator does not model it, but I'll show you what the chart looks like. Let's see if I can find it on Google here. Yeah, this is basically it. There we go. So, height above elevation altimeter setting source. That's a fancy word for the height in AGL. For example, the Cat 1 ILS minimum 214, but above the altimeter setting source, above ground, it's 200 feet above ground. So, this is 0, it's -2, pretty close to that. 200 feet at 0, or -2 roughly, is an extra 20 feet. Even -10 is 20 feet. So instead of having 214, which is 220 in the RJ as your minimum, you'd actually have to add 20 feet. So it'd be 240 for the MDA. So let's go ahead and set that in here. MDA, click that back in here. With the temp correction is 240. Okay, but that's not the only one we got to correct. We have to correct every single altitude basically on this chart. Important one being Baden crossing at 1600 is now 16. Let's get this. You see it, how it gives you above ground. We'll round up to 1600 feet on that guy. Go over to here. They have 1500 and they have 2000. Of course, right? They never have the right on. So let's see. 1500 gives 90 feet extra, 2000 gives 120 feet extra. Let's call it 100 feet, right on the dot. So we're actually 1700 feet. Now where's my pen here? 1700, that's not a 7. Oh, okay, well Alt-Z does autopilot off. Know that for next time. There we go, 1700 feet. Our MSA, our minimum sector altitude, is 2,600 feet based on a DCA VOR. Well, it's not 2,600 because we got a temp comp it. I think you get the point now, but we would do all this in the thing here. It's 26, we'll call it 3, extra 170. So 20, actually we'll go 150, so we'll go 2750. Now, if the ATC is vectored you on an altitude, you do not need to temp correct it. They've done that for you. But anything you see on this chart that's MSA, or above sea level, you'd have to temperature correct it. And that's because of altimeter error when it's really cold like this. Either way, we'll say that's been completed there. And I just got rid of the chart. I needed that. There we go. Bring that back up here. Let's see our descents going here. Direct intercept page. Skills want 12,000 feet. They want 2,000 a minute. That's looking good. We're going to wait till it says 28. So let's get this approach, rest of this approach plugged in. It's 1099. Gotta hurry up a little bit faster here. 109. I got a bunch of stuff typed in. 1099. 9. Copy paste. That's in there. MDA's already set. The HCP, the length is, oh, this is hard to do on this because I don't have a TLR. Okay, I've got elevation there. I'll get it off the format I'm used to getting it off from here. Remember, one is 7,000. 169, and it didn't clear. So usually it would clear that. You don't have to actually press clear. 17,000. 169. And elevation. Clear, clear, clear. Of 11 feet. Which is a 3-degree slope. And I'll just verify that before I just assume that actually. That's probably good practice, eh? Three degrees, yeah. I don't know, I was drawing a blank there. 3 degrees. That's the HCP we just set up, the HUD control panel. It doesn't matter in the sim. I'm just doing it out of habit. Lastly, we're going to set up the FMS. So, departure, arrival, ILS 1, do not press execute, legs page. Let's bring Phillipsburg up back behind us there, going direct Shiloh. I don't know why there's 2 of these. Should be one of those. Next page, Berneck, Felty, High Tech. Skills, Baltimore 250 at 10. That's set already for you. Katrin's 25 and above. Baden is, we didn't calculate it, but we calculated 1600 up there, which was 1700 feet. Runway 1, a ref of 140. 139 now apparently, just changed his mind. And then the missed approach is to the GTN, holding at GTN at 2,200, and I'm going to make the speed up in my head because I don't have a speed card in front of me. And that's all been confirmed and executed, and the star is correct with the altitudes. We'd run through this and then verify it, and we'd press execute at the end of that. Hey, now we have a VNAV. Look at that. Should be there from before. Shiloh skills are still showing 23. So we're ahead of the game. So I'll give you an IFR approach brief. This is a general IFR approach brief. We would already have briefed that we're coming in from Phillipsburg. Skills at 12. Baltimore 250 at 10,000. And then I would have read off all these points, and we would have been checking the FMS there to make sure they're good. Anyways, ILS runway 1 into Ronald Reagan DCA. It's page 11-1. Make sure the other person's on the right page, literally and figuratively. Effective is 23rd of February. ILS is 1099. That's set left and right. The final approach course at 007. Baden crossing altitude 1,700 feet. At ILS MDA is 240 set right, and I'd have to set this guy's up for him or her. 240, and that's set left. And airport correction, MSA is based on the DCA VOR. Let's watch that speed. It is 2,700 feet temp comped. And if you don't know what this is MSA, minimum sector altitude. So if I'm within 25 nautical miles of whatever is distributed here, so in this case the DCA VOR, which is 1110, I should probably plug that in as a backup, I am guaranteed obstacle clearance if I'm at this altitude of at least 1,000 feet in non-mountainous areas. Skills wants 2,600 feet per minute. That's coming nicely. We want 3,000. We're going to need icing, so we'll probably lead it. We'll do maybe, we want 2,800. We'll start down. Right, this approach, climb 420 feet, then climb left turn 2,200 feet, outbound DCA VOR radial 325 Georgetown, and then basically holding there. In the event of missed approach, we brief this. It's basically a takeoff. The only difference is we go toga button, toga thrust, flap 8, and then it's a takeoff. Gear up, speed mode. In this case, we're going to go heading mode because we're going to be in green needles. They want 2,800 feet per minute. I know I'm breaking apart here, but I have to keep going back and forth. ATC would have been giving us the descend via the star or something like that. So we'll go ahead and set 12,000 feet in there. It wants 29. We're going to give it 3,000. So vertical speed, 3,000 a minute. Idle thrust, and away we go. Alright, so we're descending. This is a normal descent profile. 3,000 a minute. Now, it would not be slowing down at this point too much. We're going to go to indicated and 290 on the speed. It would not be slowing down this much. But anyways. Where was I? Yeah, missed approach would be toga button, toga thrust, which could put you in the go-around mode. Once you see a positive trend with the speed, there you go, flap 8. This is all, by the way, in the Aerosoft go-around profile. It's all there as well, so this isn't really company-specific, it's more airplane-specific. With the positive rate, grab the gear, go speed mode, just like the takeoff, heading mode, just like the takeoff, in this case, because we're in green needles. Through 600 feet on the radar altimeter, autopilot on. Then we'll go to white needle navigation, FMS, and we'll go to nav mode, so we can fly this procedure they want us to fly a bit easier. Passing 1,100 feet, what's your elevation here? Basically 1,000 feet on the radar altimeter, we'll start accelerating, so that same acceleration altitude as we did in Toronto, same idea. We'll lead a bit more, we'll do 3,200 a minute there. And then we'll retract flaps on schedule as we did. Climb thrust with the after takeoff checks, and would most likely get vectored. But in essence, this missed approach is pretty simple. It's climb straight ahead for a very, very tiny bit to 400 feet, and then an immediate left turn. So just get away from the prohibited area of the White House, which brings me to the next point. Is we're going to make this little fix here for the White House. So the fix is called Pilvia, and it's a distance of 1. So there's the White House. We'll have it out there, and so we know where the prohibited airspace is, where not to go. Alrighty, go down here. MDA has been discussed already. Now, I'm kind of doing this brief as a instructional brief, as I'm kind of teaching you / talking about it. Whereas if I'm just briefing, I would just go. It goes by in about 40 seconds to a minute. It's not quite a long brief. We have the PAPIs here. Notice the PAPIs on the right-hand side. So we have PAPIs on the left with ALFSF Type 2 lighting. Don't ask me what that lighting is, but it looks like that. The missed approach is told to you again in a visual kind of format. And then runway 1, planning to exit most likely on November. If I don't make that, then Juliet. If I don't make that on my own ATC, I'll exit 3-3. So anyways, that's kind of how that would go. It's basically you're reading the chart from top to bottom, left to right. Once you've gotten the name of the approach, the page, and the effective date, it just becomes left to right. And that's it. In case of a missed approach as well, I'm going to click the MFD data button there. We have an extra 3,800 pounds on top of our reserve fuel. So what we can do with that is we can definitely come around for another try if it's nothing limiting to the airplane or the airport of why we're not coming back. So plenty of extra gas. With all that said, consider yourself briefed, and it's time to do the descent here. So let's see, we're planning skills at 12. Skills wants 2,400 feet a minute. I'm going to back this off to 3. And you do want to make this because the next waypoint is Baltimore 250 at 10, and you don't have too much time to slow down. But what I'm planning to do is I'm going to wait till skills becomes 1,200 a minute, which should happen roughly around 12,000 feet anyways, or sorry, roughly around 14,000 feet, sorry. And we'll just slowly, just nicely decelerate and glide down into that 250 bucket. Real world, these numbers would say 12,000. It shouldn't say flight level 184 and all these weird numbers. These numbers are correct. The vertical speed numbers are correct. These numbers are not correct. So Baltimore 10 is though, but skills is not. So take that with a grain of salt there. These numbers are correct, and these numbers are correct, but the ones in the direction set page, I don't know where they're getting that from. The other reason I'm doing 3,000 a minute, and I'm not letting up on the vertical speed, I'm not dialing back, is because we're going to need the anti-ice on most likely if that cloud layer keeps up, and as soon as your wing anti-ice comes on, let's go ahead and I'll show you right here. This is actually a pretty high end too. We're at idle thrust. I'm going to go ahead and turn the wing on. Now, rear world, that N2 would have been increased. And it increases because it needs more bleed air to run the anti-ice system than just idle thrust. So it wouldn't be able to do it on idle, so it actually kicks up the engine power for you, and it's very hard to slow down after that point. Alright, we got the flashing transition here. Let's get DCA. Let's get the weather again. It's at pressure 2985. Kind of wish it would stop blinking there. I'll press B. There we go. 2985 is set. Left, center, right. Alright, skills wants 1400. It might not need too much icing, to be honest. It wants 1,300. I'm gonna once it says 12, I'm gonna dial it down to 1,200 a minute. There's 12. We'll go 1,200 a minute. We'll match those up. So now we're gonna meet skills right at the 12 mark. But I'm gonna keep my speed up, so I'm gonna add some power in here. I notice in the sim when it calls for 2,800 feet per minute or 3,000 feet per minute, and you do 3,000 feet per minute, the number starts to back down quite quickly. In real life, if you lead if it says it wants 28 and you do 3,000 feet per minute, it shouldn't be counting down the vertical speeds that quickly. Like, the calculation seems a little bit off, but whatever. It's just for fun. So doing roughly, let's do 1,100 a minute, so I can keep descending. I believe that. Oh no, sorry. We'll do actually right on, because I thought it was an above 12 or a below 12. 11 works, that's what it wants. Another gripe is real world, and I brought this up as well, is this number, the vertical speed required, is actually displayed to you as well in this VNAV section. So you don't have to hold this page open all the time as you do in the sim, but you kind of have to here. Take a look back at that good star, the skills 5. Yeah, so skills is just 12. They don't care about 250 there. Sometimes they have a 250 a little higher than 10,000. Let's sync that heading back on our course there. You can see DC, downtown DC over there. The Pilvia fix should be in front of us. The Pilvia is right in there. And the RJ infamous wobbling around. I'm just going to direct Baltimore so it hurts my brain to see it wobble. Baltimore needs 600 a minute, so definitely got to beat that. There's 1.3 for 1.2, but now we're going to Baltimore, so let's go ahead and set 10,000 in our altitude selector. And what we're going to do is, it wants 600. We're going to do 1,000, and we're going to level off a bit earlier, and then we're just going to bring that speed back from 290 to 250. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is leveling off here at 12,000, and then waiting a little bit to make a steeper descent. But with the icing conditions about to come up, if we do, I think we'll be under them. But it's just better to be on early on the top of things rather than late and go, oh, I should have did it a little earlier. So you can either look really cool making the restriction right on the money, or you can just or you can look really bad not making the restriction on the money, or you can just descend a little earlier and be level in 250 passing the gate, right? Just have it ready to go. So that's my method usually. Not ridiculously early, but you know, that's only about 40 seconds. I mean, we only have 4 minutes to Baltimore right now, so probably like a minute, which is where we'll be at 10,000. And so obviously we'd be transitioned into a Potomac approach, is it? I forget who it is. I think it's Potomac approach down here. But you'd be passed along ATC as usual on your normal flights that you do. They also usually want, they make you do this thing, they'll say descend 20 miles north, B level 12,000, there's 11 for 10. What that means is, what we do here is they want you 20 miles north, but right now we're heading south, so they want you, before you hit Baltimore, 20 miles before you hit it, they want you to be at 12,000 feet, and the way to do that in real world is you copy Baltimore, you go /-20, oh, I did a plus, should be a minus first, and put it on top of it. Oh, no way this works. No. It would say Baltimore 01, and in that case, it would actually build a waypoint 20 miles north of Baltimore, and then you have something to plan for and descend to. Alright, we're leveling at 10,000. We'll be at Baltimore in 2 minutes. We're going to set speed of 250. And we'll pull idle thrust. Alt's capping at 10. And we're in the cloud now. Let's go ahead and warm the wings and cowls up. Turn a bit of these lights on here. Nothing crazy. I see people like chug the floodlights and all sorts. You don't want all that. You want very low display and very low lighting. You want as much night vision out the window as possible for when you do that flare. You're not blinded by these screens, especially this giant iPad. I'm going to be can't see it in the video, but I'm going to turn it lower here. Alright, let's check speed there. We'll add our thrust back for 250. And now we've made the restriction, right? 250 knots, 10,000 feet. Could you have gotten at this point right on the money, you know, kind of knife edge it? Sure. But it's just, I just say why? Just, you know, take the extra minute to be level and slow down. This RJ, when it has anti-ice on real world, it will not slow down. It takes a long time, even level. You might even need speed brakes, or spoilers I should say, to get this thing to slow down. In the sim it's a bit too draggy, especially with the anti-ice on, it's too draggy. I think it's 10 knots every mile. There's a little rough, you know, a rough little thing there. 10 knots or 10 knots a mile. So if you're going from 290 to 250, you're covering a good 4 miles there. Alright, you can see our Pilvia fix coming into view a bit better there. I'm going to match our heading. Boom, heading sync. Always want to match that heading. Reason is, and I see, and it's kind of a, it just kind of irks me. I'll see streams with it. People flying it here, people flying it like that. That's fine, like it's not going to disrupt the flight. But what's going to end up happening is as soon as you get a heading, and they'll say, you know, and if you're not expecting it, maybe they'll be like, hey, turn heading this. You're going to click heading mode, and your airplane's going to start turning the wrong direction first. So it's always good to have it synced. So if you click heading mode by accident, right away, you're not going to turn, right? All right, usually by this point they give us 6,000 feet, so 6,000. And they want us at 250 knots, let's say, so 6,000 is there. I'm going to click the speed button on the autopilot panel, descend 250, dial that down, and we'll just go, might not even need idle thrust, I'll just reduce my thrust a little bit. And you can see it'll be 6,000 by eyes roughly. We've got the engine anti-ice and wing anti-ice still on, passing 10,000, tax light can go on. We'll give the seatbelts a ring for the FAs and the people in the back there. And then we would do an approach check. Let's see what the approach checklist looks in here. I guess descent. Landing elevation's been set way before. Fuel, yeah, this stuff kind of doesn't really make sense. The only thing that makes sense is landing data, which is set for 72,000 pounds, and the approach briefing has been completed. Taxi lights on, flight attendants advised as well. And altimeters are 2985. I don't get a 5 option. I get a 4 and a 6. We'll call it 6, I guess. That's set left, center, and right. So in descend 250, just like the climb mode, opposite though, if I wanted to descend faster, I would increase drag and reduce thrust. So if I wanted to descend at the steepest possible rate, idle thrust, full spoiler, that's the steepest I'll get. You know, if I want to descend a bit shallower, I can add some thrust. So I can actually control my descent rate. Let's say I want 1,000 a minute. I'm going to add a little bit of thrust. And you're going to see that purple banana bar there. It's going to move up. And our vertical speed's increasing there, or decreasing technically. Right? And the airspeed is staying at 250 because the airplane knows the power I have in it, knows its drag coefficient it's got going on in this descent, and it'll just hold that 250 with pitch. There's that broken 1500 layer coming on in, right? So the weatherman's making his money. He did a good job. The seatbelt's popped up because I turned it on. We'll go ahead and box that message. Don't need that anymore. And the reason we box them is because anything else happens. Alt's cap there, by the way. I didn't actually hear the 1,000 to go chime, but we caught the alt's cap. We'll add my thrust in for 250. yeah, just in case anything else happens and a status message pops up, it'll first of all open the message box, so it already alerts us that something's happened there, and secondly it'll go right to the top of the list of things. Now we have these blue, it's called preview ILS bars here. We got them here and here on both sides. We cannot fly an ILS in white needle navigation. We cannot fly, I'll say it again, an ILS in white needle navigation. I see a lot of streams of people arming lokes and stuff, and the airplane is not simulated to a part where it actually won't, like it'll almost let you do it. In real world, it is impossible for this airplane to fly an ILS because you're in FMS navigation, not in VOR/ILS navigation, which is what we call green needles. White needles FMS, green needles is ILS, VORs, that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and give myself a further descent down to 4,000 feet. Force confirmed, speed mode, idle thrust on that guy there. Descend 250. So what we're going to have to do is once we get, basically once you start getting vectored for the approach, you've been given a heading, set the heading, start turning, and then you and the captain, or you and the FO, depending on where you are going to turn your nav source knob inwards. Let me go ahead and make it back to day so you can learn with daytime here. This is your nav source knob. We're in white needles right now. I would scroll this inwards once. There's 5 for 4. And I'd get green on this side, and I would scroll inwards once to get green on that side. So the way this knob works is we call whiteout. If you want to go white needles, Alt's cap before, you would scroll out towards the window. Scroll the knob that way. Green needles is always inside of the screen. Alt's capping, let's add some thrust for 250. Alrighty. And they'd probably give me further down to 3,000, and then I'm doing my own ATC because I got nobody. So descend 3,000 there. Anti-ice is still on. 4 for 3. Alt's cap. It's Alt's capping, yeah, 800 feet away, sure. Let's do it. And I'm going to start slowing down. Let's call it 220. The reason 220 is a good number is you can get flaps 1, 8, and I would probably go 219, but you can get flaps 20 technically up to 220 as well, and the gear. So you can get a lot of stuff done there if you need to. Got a lot of snow out on the ground. If you ever forget the speeds, by the way, they're right above your nav screen here. Flap 20, 220, there you go. 185, 170 with the gear speed of 220 as well. So Alt's cap in there. We'll add our thrust for 220. Alright, and this is probably where they'd start to vector you onto the final. So what you'd hear, actually I'll get myself past Catherine because this will be basically an ILS, so we'll go a bit farther. If this was the visual, they'd be turning us inbound right there, boom, over there for the Mount Vernon. Alright, now usually they'd give you a speed restriction at this point, like just a slow 190 or something like that. So let's simulate that. So if they gave me a speed of 190, this airplane actually can fly flap 0 at 190, but we're not going to do that. We're going to add flap 1. And this is slats only. Flap 1 is slat only at the front. It's 20 degrees of slat. And what happens in real life is this. Because it's so much drag on only the leading part of the edge, the AOA has to increase tremendously, and you're actually up in about the 5 to 8 degree range to hold level. And usually for that reason we add flap 8, and that kind of brings that, in real life it would bring the nose bit down to hold level. It reduces the AOA a little bit, and it's actually technically a bit more fuel efficient, but it's not simulated here. So either way, they'd probably give you vectors now. So they'd probably say, you know, Jazz 72, turn left 300, vectors ILS 01, something like that. So we'll go ahead and do that. My heading indicators being a bit troublesome. So as soon as you hear Jazz vector, your heading goes heading sync, heading mode, and the heading they tell you. Heading sync, heading mode, and the heading they tell you. So 300 in this case is what I've been giving myself. Slow to 180. Alrighty. Now we're vectored. We do not need white needles because we're not flying white needles anymore. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get green needles. Green, green. Verify that the course is correct. That's not correct. We need 007. Let's add some speed. My speed got way off there. We need 007 for the course. Usually it should be preset for you. It didn't do that good of a job on today, so 007 for that. That one's not set either. 007 for that. I can watch my speed to that captain screen too. Alright, further right turn, we'll do a heading of roughly 345, and we're going to sequence the FMS from Catron. So Catron, we'll bring it up here, intercept course of 007, and execute that. Now in real life, this would actually start the line a little bit perpendicular to us and a bit extended, but it would not go off into Narnia. See, it just keeps going. That doesn't happen. It stops about basically where you are perpendicular to it, roughly. Alright, so I'm going to bring up my progress page, page 2. We want to be inside a mile before I arm the approach, and that's just because of an RJ, it has a bit of a problem with localizer capturing, so it's just a good practice to be under a mile there. Glide slope is there as well, it's popped up. Hey, we can see a little bit. Engine, anti-ice, and wings are still, yeah, wings and cals are still on, so it might be a bit hard to have the thrust being controlled. I'm bad at vectoring, so I'm going to give myself a different vector. But at this point, they'd probably come on and say, Jazz at 782 or cleared for the ILS runway 1 approach. And then that's your cue that, you know, I don't know if this works well in the sim, so I'm just going to bypass that. But that's your cue to go ahead and press the approach button. And we got loc 0 captured. I don't know how it's captured. It's coming in now. Look alive. Fun fact, if you're in green needle navigation and you've been given a localizer only to capture, you click nav and that gives you loc only. And I can click nav. Arms loc 2. Let's unarm approach. It's going to be headed. Let's do that. Nav, there you see it, loc 2. We'll go back to approach because it's going to get me all over the place. But that's a fun fact for you. So if you're captured localizer only, nav in green needle, instead of giving FMS will give you loc. Alright, we got quite a significant headwind from the left, and the ILS is, the localizer is slowly working its way back. Let's go ahead and set our 007 runway heading. Glide slope is a dot there. We'll go gear down, increase the thrust a little bit for that gear, tiny bit. Get our reversers on. Alright, we'll go flap, let's wait for the glide slope capture here. And what's good is, I can leave, I'm slowly decelerating, but I'm in the bucket. As soon as I get that glide slope capture, I'll add a little bit of thrust here to hold 180 there. But I should be able to hold the thrust basically where it was, and the descent should help us. So glide slope capture, flap 20. We'll slow the speed at 160. Reduce my thrust a little bit here. I don't know why loc 0 is flashing all it doesn't do that. It should be loc 2, it should not be loc 0. Alright, runway's coming into sight there slowly. Alright, we're at a 7 mile final, as you can see, DCA. We've captured the glide slope. We'll set the missed approach altitude of 2,200 feet, as you remember from the approach brief there. I'm sure you did. We'll go flap 30, because we're below 185. Now usually, not always, but usually if you set an altitude lower, like if you're descending into it, you'll get a chime, it'll honk at you, and you'd have to click the inside of this to push cancel, and you would just say disregard missed approach altitude. So we're below the clouds, we're visual, we got no ice light, and no other cloud or rain is coming up, so we'll go cals and wing off. We'll say we're on tower, clear to land. Throw those on. Flap 45. VREF of 139. There's no gust reported, so we don't have to add any +5 or anything like that. When we add wind in the RJ, it's for any gust. So if it was, let's say, 10 gusting 20, that's a 10 knot gust. We'd add half the gust. So 5 in that case. But with no gusts reported, this should be just fine. Landing technique, let's talk. My throat's going to kill me today. Landing technique wise, it's going to be 50 feet, eyes down the runway. So this is a real landing technique. In the sim, this thing floats way too much. But real life landing technique, 50 eyes down the runway, 40 feet, hold the glide, hold what you're doing, do what you're doing. 30 feet, start reducing that power back. 20 feet, start the flare. 10 feet, you should be idle and fixing the nose with the rudder if need be with the wind, and continuing that flare. 50 eyes down, 40 do nothing, 30 start the power reduction, 20 start the flare, 10 add the rudder and add a bit of a flare if you need to, and you should be idle by that point. If you are not idle and you touch down with the RJ, the speed brake, spoilers, won't deploy, and it usually leads to a bounce. And if you bounce and go idle again in your bounce, because you're like, ah, no, I bounced, I'm going to go idle, and you're mid-bounce, the spoilers deploy in the air and you fall even harder. As you can look up, there was an accident that happened with that. So yeah, RJ is a bit quirky. So we do a landing checklist, obviously at this point. Gears down, reverses armed, 3 green in the gear, flap 45. I don't trust the landing checklist in this on the iPad, so I'll do mine. Lights on. And usually you'll find about a 62 to 65 on the N1 will be pretty good for you. So let's go ahead and autopilot off. Now, I thought it was going to be darker, but I changed the time, so let's bring those screens up. Hey, I can see the screens. Runway's quite short, not very short, but it's, you know, on the shorter side. Runway 33 that's on the other side that crosses much shorter, and most times we're not within weight limits to land on that guy. 400. Notice I'm getting a little low, so instead of a 700 for minute descent, I'll do a 500 to get back on the glide. And now that we're back on the glide, I'll go back into my 700 for minute descent. Visual landing.
200.
Okay, so we're gonna need some right rudder and left aileron. I can already see it with our nose deflected off to the side there.
50.
Eyes on the runway.
30.
Start the power.
20.
Start the flare. Floats forever. Rudder. Yoke. Reverser, just crack him into idle reverse, walk that nose back on the ground, no auto brake, keep the manual braking going. Hold that yoke. If you ever watch my crosswind landing, hold the yoke. It's not, I'm doing a lot more than what it's saying there, but I probably could have made that exit actually if I wasn't talking. But hold the yoke into the wind. So I had right rudder, left aileron into the wind there, and you're going to hold that through the rollout. Don't just touch down and let go, because your airplane's, the wind's still going. You're still going 120 knots. You're going to get carried off the center line, and that's the easiest way to do that. So we'll take this Kennedy, or not Kennedy, but Reagan ground. Once you change over, they're quite funny. They'll just say Jazz, I mean, you know, whatever you are, whatever airline, they'll just give you like, you know, JFK to the gate, or like JF, or they don't say Juliet Foxtrot. They just give you the, they just get you out of the way. Go. Get going. Alright, so we'll go do our after landings after I complete this turn here, because taxiing and do it the same is not the easiest. So let's go ahead and bring the flaps all the way up. Grab the landing lights off, grab the strobe light off, grab the aft cargo light, or aft cargo air off, grab the probes off. Radar wasn't used, so we'll remain it off. Don't click that. Transponders will stay in 2. And the anti-ice was off anyways, but we'll just verify that, and you would do a checklist to look through all that. And we would reset this guy to white needle on this side, white needle on that side, cancel the flight director, transfer it back to the captain's side, because they're probably going to be the one flying home unless you get to fly 2 legs. And that's pretty much the after the landings. And we park at, I think this guy parks at Alpha 3. But either way, that pretty much sums it up. I hope you guys enjoyed. and I hope you guys learned a lot. Again, I would love to be able to make an exact, this is what we do, this is our brief, I can't share that information, so I keep it to what buttons should be pressed, which is common knowledge, and I just, there's some stuff where it's like an FMC is like, it's an FMC. that's how you use it. Nothing much I can really do on that, but some, buttons I'm hitting out of order. Depending on the company you work for, it might be out of order for what and that's intentional. So just making it not carbon copy. The switches have to get clicked, just not in the order that I'm clicking them is what the company does. So that's that. But either way, it gets you all to the same place with the tires stopped. So hope you enjoyed. This was again suggested by David. And so thank you. Hopefully you watched the whole thing. It's quite a long video, so I wouldn't be hurt if you didn't. But if you learned anything, please leave a comment down below. Questions, please leave a comment down below. This is a regular route that Jazz does operate with the CRJ. So if you do fly on the CRJ out of Toronto or out of DC, you'll be on this. I mean, the RJ is the only. I think the RJ is the only plane that Jazz comes to DCA with. They don't think they bring anything else here. So if you ever do happen to fly on them, you'll be on the CRJ to DCA. Alright, lastly, that step is I have a little nursery rhyme for coming to the gates. That's see the crew start the APU, the APU. So as soon as you see your crew member, which I should probably have activated that guy, we're at Alpha 3. No. I don't know who it is, whatever. Hey, I see the crew. Alright, starting the APU. So same thing, press the left button first, watch for the exact same stuff. APU and bite. SFE open, APU test is complete, start APU. While that's happening, we can go ahead and start our turn. Clear right, make sure the vehicles are not going to run us over or run into us. Clear left, the captain would say. Alright. Ah, their hands actually work too. That's kind of cool. Alright, so park and brake on. Anti-ice is off. Electric page. Remember, new source, APU. Shutdown. Yeah. Seatbelts off. Pumps. I'm going to do this for a turnaround flight, so someone's going to take it back. Oh, and I'm a bad captain. Beacon light should have, or the tax light should have been off when I saw them. Oh, someone's dancing. Alright, that's okay. Never heard that one before, actually. There you go. See, the tax light would have been off if I'd been shining a light right in their face, but either way. Steering goes off, and it's ready to go back to Toronto, or... Yeah, usually, I mean, it would go back to Toronto, so... That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that. The door would get opened. The stairs would get put, the railing would get put down for gate operation. You see the railing go down there. Door. And prepare to go back again. That's it. That's the life of a regional pilot, is go somewhere and come back every 4 times. And deboarding. That's it. Everything's depressurizing, getting some beeps. Yeah. Awesome. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I actually enjoyed making this video. I don't really do full flights in the sim anymore too much. I just usually put myself in final or
The boarding
have
requested.
some fun. Okay, thank you. That jump bridge isn't connected, but I guess they can make the jump. And either way, please leave a comment down below. Please leave a like down below, and I might need a new SSD, so if you want to send me one of those, that'd be great too. I'm going to delete this video as soon as I upload it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.